Tonight on Insights on PBS Hawaii. We'll look at the future of Honolulu's Kakaako district. Will the high-rise housing development boom and retail villages in the area coexist with a thriving arts community and small businesses? What are the plans for developing Honolulu's urban core? Now, live in our studio, our host, Dan Boylan.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Dan Boylan. The redevelopment of Honolulu's Kakaako district has been in the works for close to 4 decades. The current plans call for Kakaako's warehouses, repair shops, and low-rent businesses to be transformed into a vibrant planned community. Governor Neil Abercrombie's efforts to help realize this vision of a third city on Oahu calls for Kakaako's 450 acres to become a mixed-density, live, work, play neighborhood of parks, stores, preschools, senior centers, and restaurants. It will offer both upscale and workforce housing, and its current population of 10,000 will triple by the year 2030. Tonight we'll examine the plans for this new urban center, its impact on businesses, and its potential for the state's economic growth and job creation. Will the boom in development increase urban blight and create a flood of luxury apartments, or will it create an urban oasis that helps reduce traffic congestion while meeting Hawaii's demand for affordable housing? And will this massive undertaking potentially become the blueprint for other high-density development projects throughout the state? You can join our conversation by calling, emailing, or tweeting your questions and comments. The contact information you now see on your screen will be repeated throughout the program. Insights is also streaming live on your computer and will be posted on our website after the broadcast. The live stream is closed captioned, just like our broadcast. Now to our panel. Anthony Ching is the Executive Director of the Hawaii Community Development Authority. The HCDA is charged with planning and implementing community development programs for areas designated as community development districts by the state legislature. Tony is the former Executive Officer of the State Land Use Commission. Christian O'Connor is a Senior Asset Manager of Kamehameha School's Kakaako properties. Their 15-year master plan involves a mixed-use development of 9 contiguous city blocks between South Street and Ward Avenue. Projects include Salt at R Kakaako, a planned retail village. Ralph Portmore has done urban and regional planning for numerous public agencies, private landowners, and military installations. He is a principal and senior planner with Group 70, the award-winning design firm of architects, planners, interior designers, and asset managers. Ralph was inducted as a fellow in the American Institute of Certified Planners in 2010. Graffiti artist John Prime is the director, founder, and program manager of the Community Murals Project at 808 Urban. It's a collective of community cultural workers, artists, organizers, and volunteers committed to improving the quality of life for Hawaii communities, especially for those youth at risk through arts programming. 808 Urban's physical space, The Refuge, is located in Kakaako and serves as a multi-purpose area for urban arts workshops and as a store for the artists to sell their work. And I apologize, John, for doing such a mutilated job of your introduction. Tony, we have to start with you. HCDEA has been announcing, it seems to me, another part of this plan every other day. I think we have some visuals which will show us the area of what is there at the present and what's going to happen. So if we could get that up at any time now, we'd appreciate it. Could you describe it for us? What's going to happen?
Well, first of all, Hawaii Community Development Authority, community development is the key part of that. So we're trying to build a community there. The graphic that you have here will show that that community can be an urban community, that it will feature under current entitlements some tall buildings, and possibly in the future a few taller buildings. In return, we would hope that there would be, again, attendant public benefits received.
Tony, show if you can see that on the monitor. You can see the number of, I believe. Well, we don't have it on the monitor anymore. There it is. You can see the brown buildings are buildings that are already there, right?
Yes, they're existing properties that are unlikely to be rebuilt.
And the blue buildings are, the tall blue buildings are all new, right?
The tall blue buildings are consistent with our existing plan, so the maximum height of 400 feet, and they feature certain orientation and layout.
But some of these are blue and yellow.
And so the blue and yellow would indicate those, if our TOD plan is accepted, that those buildings could feature additional height, and they're location specific.
And there are a lot of tall new buildings with yellow tops here in this visual, which means that a lot of those are going to go higher than anything we've seen before, right?
That is the potential, but if you were to, on an average, look at what proportion of buildings might benefit from TOD and additional height and density, I think on the average it'd be 15 to 20% that would be affected.
TOD means?
Transit-oriented development.
Because there are 2 transit stops, right, in this Kakaako area that is being redeveloped.
Actually, with the addition of Aloha Tower, the Hiko power plant parcel happens to be a station and a part of our district. So technically 3.
There are 3 stations along the way. Now, as I understand it, the plan is that, you know, we're talking about transforming this from right now an area that is, I don't know how to describe the area. I used to attend a bar there until the bar had to move and, on Friday nights. But it's
like a light industrial, auto-focused retail area that's where you get your car fixed. It's where you go to a bar. You know, this is what it was really until recently. It started to transform a lot more rapidly than that now. But you know, it was that area. It's where you go purchase an automobile right now if you live in Hawaii Kai or anywhere else in town.
But
you know.
Uniquely, this area also has over 110 acres of the 660 total, including our Makai area, is held by 2 entities. So it's very unusual in an urban context to have consolidated ownership, which would lend itself to continuity and consistency as we develop.
And those 2 entities include?
Kamehameha Schools.
And you folks have?
54 acres, but 29 are currently entitled under HCDA's entitlements for 2,750 units, 550 which are scheduled for reserve housing.
And where are those areas specifically? I mean,
you know, the best way to describe it is South Street to almost toward, not quite past the Dodge Chrysler Jeep Fiat dealership on both sides of Ala Moana and back to where UFC Gym is today, all the way across to a large parking lot that has Eat the Street on it.
So that's mainly warehousing. There's a park back there, right? Is Mother Waldron part of
Waldron's,
that?
yeah, but that's part of the land holdings that are with HCA, the city and county, and other entities.
Yes, Mother Waldron is jointly owned by the city and county, HCDA, and the Department of Land and Natural Resources.
So this is one of the big landowners. Now, what's the second big landowner?
That would be actually Victoria Ward Limited, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Howard Hunt Development. Howard Hughes. I'm sorry. Good catch.
Very good. Very good. He didn't get that award for nothing, you know. And does the Howard Hughes stuff run?
So they're roughly from the Koalani or TJ Maxx and then Eva. Eva to
right
just
next
before the UFC gym.
So the UFC gym is kind of where, right next to UFC gym, there's another set of warehouses, and that's where the property line starts to divide between Kamehameha and Howard Hughes.
Now, there's also going to be, as I see on the visual that you offered, there's also going to be a big building built beside Blaisdell Center too. That's in the planning, right?
Well, again, the TOD overlay is a vision. And so it presents an opportunity, should the city choose to pursue it, that the Blaisdell might make a good location for to be remade, to be reinvented, and that reinvention was determined or conceived because it's currently Honolulu's premier gathering place. That's where our arena is. That's where our concert is. That's where it's next to McKinley High School, which has great legacy. It's almost at our city center, and so it's an important opportunity, and 2 blocks from a station.
Now, what happens to Kakaako as it is at the present with places like the Refuge, places like some arts places, like the bar of mine that's already left, like so many other things? There's a community that's already there, right?
Yeah, the community is pretty diverse. So what Christian did was he brought in all of these creative folks and kind of helped us collaborate, you know, and in places that we never thought we would collaborate. So as far as like the art community, it's much more than just the visual. It's the folks that do the cooking. It's the folks that, you know, do the planning. I mean, all of these folks are artists as well. And what we're finding is that we have more in common than we thought initially when we first came into the neighborhood.
One night I'm trying to get to my bar, and you couldn't find a parking place because everybody's going over to the food trucks. There are a million food trucks over there.
It's interesting you say that because Kakaako, prior to it turning into this industrial area, it was a workplace. Yeah, it was a place for all of these folks that worked at Pakaka, and you could smell the food. You could smell the Filipino food, Portuguese food. You know, it was a smell that we don't have anymore. And Eat the Street brought that back. So there's that essence of the past that exists today.
And how often do they do that?
Once a month.
And rents at the present, of course, without new development, are pretty low, right? Come on, Christian, you can tell us.
I'd say that the conditions are quite favorable because the term on some of these assets is diminishing rapidly, and so there isn't much time left before they go under a more aggressive construction. And so with that time horizon shrinking, the base is if you got a couple months left, you can't put a lot into a space and make it up to something extremely nice unless you're willing to let go of that. And so I think a lot of the community members that have come in have said, hey, we want to root here, we want to try something out, we want to test something, we want to be entrepreneurs and vanguards, and Kamehameha Schools has worked with them and accepted them and started to build a community upon these individuals that wanted to take a risk and try something. And I think what we're seeing is that some things are moving in such a direction that they can move into some of the assets that are coming along that are going to be redeveloped. Some are finding that there's other communities around Honolulu, urban Honolulu, that they'll be successful in because those rents will be stable and those uses are all starting to collect in certain locations. And then others are being shifted to alternate locations within the portfolio to grow them and continue to grow those businesses.
Actually, I think Kamehameha's plan envision new development and a term that's called adaptive reuse.
That's right, Tony.
So that adaptive reuse is an opportunity, actually, especially as the community changes, to see what can work, to test out new activities. And I have to give props to Kamehameha in that they've encouraged a new energy in the area with activities such as Eat the Streets, night market,
Honolulu night market,
and just the choice of tenants and the willingness to again engage with local artists or if not just creative people, and it's just created a bunch of energy. So Kakaako is more than street murals. It is more than just retail. It is realizing again that vibe, that energy that great cities have and thrive on.
But it's uniquely an urban island culture that's developing that is uniquely Kakaako. And it's this community that's collected together of these disparate voices that are all very creative, that are generating a cultural kind of urban experience that's unlike anything in any city, and that's rooted in the cultural history of the land and the place and the Hawaiian people. And it's beautiful.
And Ralph, how, as a planner, I mean, excuse me for being a cynic, but when the governor says this third city is going to be a mixed density live, work, play neighborhood, how can you plan a mixed density live, work, play? How can you guarantee that kind of community is in fact going to develop?
I think that's the core question. How do you create a great urban place? Is this going to be a place where we have buildings and podiums and it's somewhat insular and then there's some basic services? Or are we going to really have a gathering place where people do indeed live, work, and play? Not only people get together as a community that live there, but also people come in and enjoy working and playing there. To me, it's all about the ground level public space. The streets, the pedestrian ways, the bike paths, the plazas, and pocket parks. You've got to really plan that well. If Kakaako, they have a golden opportunity now, when you realize you have these two major landowners, Kamehameha Schools and Howard Hughes, Victoria Ward, plus a CDA, which is really much more than a regulator, much more than just doing development. They're trying to create a community there. You got the catalyst to create a great urban space, but you've got to really, to me, focus on that ground level so that the things that are happening now, such as Prime talks about, there's still places for them to continue to happen, even as it gentrifies, even as it redevelops. That's the key. And I think we need to do more than the level of talking and doing that we're doing now. We need to really bite that bullet and spend some time, energy, and funds on creating a cohesive, connecting, ground level space for people to work, eat, and play and intermingle.
John, are you optimistic that there will be a place for the refuge and for artists with redevelopment?
Absolutely, yeah. Because like this place is unique, and being that Christian really took our voice and listened to us, which is something that you don't normally get, but he did something about it also. So whatever crazy ideas we come up with, they usually support, and. And even if they disagree,
that's refreshing. Actually, that's refreshing.
Even if he disagrees, he'll still go ahead and do it. And he gets a lot of heat on his end, but at the end, we're all happy with the outcome. And it's for the kids to see these things, right? Because they're going to be here much longer than we are, and to see how everything unfolds. For the adults, they're kind of worried, like, oh, where are we going to end up in a little bit?
I think it's really important to note that besides the 12,000 people that we estimate live there, besides people like Prime who are creating and putting energy into the community, that Kakaako is also a gathering place for the entire city. So we have a harbor there, we have 50 acres of parks there, and that's not just used by the residents. And so I think the important thing to consider is that whatever we do, that again, our audience is not to create an exclusive community where you have boundaries and okay, only if you live here that everybody is going to be utilizing the services in Kakaako, and it should be accessible to much. And I think John's work, and again, I have to give props. Developers typically do not support arts. Developers are typically in for the short run. Let's get that built and let's go. Okay, so now we have energy. And so if people were to be asked, hey, do you want to live in a really ritzy tall tower in Kakaako? Or if you said to them, hey, how about living in Kakaako? There's so much things happening there. You can walk to work, you can participate in the night market, you can go to the park and hang out. I mean, it's so much there. So what is going to be that answer? It's going to be a no-brainer. It's the community, the activities, the energy that John's people and and the kids that are learning what it's like to live in a city and have activities outside of your four walls that you might call home.
But Tony, I still go back to asking, and maybe it's a question for you, Ralph, how do you plan that in? How do you plan that sense of place? How do you plan that activity once the redevelopment takes place, the buildings are up? The community life is going to be based on what's on the ground floor, right?
Yeah,
and what's in the street, and what kind of streets they are, whether they're traffic congested streets or whether they're walkable streets, and who plans that?
But as I'm saying, you need to reverse the process. Not once the buildings are up, what happens? You've got to plan those ground level spaces before you build the buildings.
Well, I think there's two things going on. What I would say is that one, we've got some great guidelines that were produced by Torti Gallus for HCDA that drape our community and kind of talk about this idea of Torti
It's a consultant we use in our existing plan, and that plan envisions, again, active streetscapes.
Absolutely. Not a lot of canyon-like walls, and those experiences where they're moated they're exclusive and moated. It's more, stoop living, urban townhomes, a retail on the street, where you're parklets, where you're walking through and actually walking through a dining experience and hearing, and you can just imagine the tinkling of the glass, the laughter. It's vibrant, it's alive, the streets are alive, it's safer that way, and that's the kind of community that Kamehameha Schools envisions, and I think generally that's the community that Howard Hughes envisions as well.
So I would hope that Ralph would, the true test. So Ralph has a background that he would look at the rules that we have in place. Do those rules speak to active streetscapes, or do they speak to strip mall mentality with big parking lots in front, or do they feature build to lines which have the requirement that there's no parking in front? There's no curb cut, so people can go down a canopy lined or with frontages that are inviting. Truly, that would make it easier to get around, or it would be more efficient, quickly apparent that
I have a question.
Let me ask you. Have you looked at those rules?
Yeah, we're all talking the same thing. We all think the same way. I totally like what Kamehameha Schools is doing, what Howard Hughes did in their plan, what HCDA is doing, especially with their 2011 redo of the plan and the rules. What I'm concerned about is, you look at public plazas, for example. Tamarind Square works, others don't. It's hard to create that public space that works. It isn't just in rules.
That's right. It's in programming, it's in community development.
I mean, I would like to see a chunk of money put down by Kamehameha Schools and Howard Hughes and HCDA and the city. They all get together and say, we're going to plan right down to details and execute a ground level plan that's going to make this really a great urban space. The original plan for HCDA had this grand vision of, we want to preserve all the industrial, so we're going to have platforms at 45 feet. Well, it never happened.
This was 76 years ago, right? Or, 40 years ago. 30 years ago. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about 1976.
1982 it was adopted, yeah.
Okay.
It takes, and everybody thought that was a good vision. I personally thought, I wasn't sure how it would ever happen, and it didn't happen. I think we have a vision now that can happen, but it's going to take hard work to make it happen.
Absolutely.
And it really should be getting down in the ditches and getting dirty. Kamehameha Schools, Howard Hughes, and HCDA, and the city, because the city owns the roads. So they all ought to be getting down there and working on it.
And the first street that we're going to be looking at that transformation to prove the point would be Oahu.
Right, that's exactly it.
Okay, so transformation of Oahu to feature, I mean, I have these great shots of Oahu, and you look at it during the day and there's nobody there. It's too hot, there's no activities, it just is not conducive.
It's getting better though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but then the transformation and the being able to work with Howard Hughes and Kamehameha, because they pretty much have Oahu all locked up. Okay, so
Wait a
our
minute.
rules.
Excuse me a minute. Where's Oahu? I'm not sure.
Oahu Street is right next to Ala Moana Boulevard. So when you're going down
Block Mile?
past
Yeah.
the former Comp USA, where the collection's going to be,
Right. Okay.
it's on that.
We're Water Entertainment Center.
So it ends at Restaurant Row on one side, it terminates at Hokua at the other side. So it's not a major through arterial.
Right, no.
It's
soft
really,
street.
yeah.
It's your walking boulevard, your pedestrian experience where you can walk from one part of the community to the other. You can go in restaurants and shops. You can go into your grocery store at some point.
So there's agreement amongst the two major landowners that this should be, instead of seeing cars going whizzing by at 40 because that street is meant for 40. I mean, it says 25, but it's really 40.
You know, just to
and
go
to transform it.
Yeah, and we've already, like, Kamehameha Schools has already embarked on efforts where we created a parklet contest and we had people build parklets. And then during the night market, when the street is closed, so there's no vehicular traffic, we put the parklets out in the parking spots so people could experience them and see them and touch them and feel them. And we worked with UH to do that. So we're working on activities and events. There was just Complete Streets that HCA was a part of, and Kamehameha Schools was as well, and that was an example of roundabouts and different experiences. So I think we're pushing forward.
I'm obliged to be optimistic, Ralph, and the reason because one street
By the way,
agreement.
I'm a retired partner at Group 70. I'm not a partner there anymore, and I'm really here as a planner. I'm not here representing Group 70, as proud as I am of being part of that family. So if anybody takes any offense at anything I say, please don't take it out on Group 70.
Winnie in Mililani wants to know, are there plans to build new schools, elementary, middle, and high schools? You talk about kids in that area. I can't think of, where are the schools in that area?
There's, what's that school?
Voyager.
Voyager.
Voyager and Myron
Voyager's right on-
Thompson. So
yeah.
there are two charter schools.
So there are two charter schools,
And-
but
and
there's not a public school in that area.
Don't forget the preeminent location of McKinley High School,
that's
a
right.
legacy center.
So Voyager's there. Voyager's expanded into the like Hawai'i buildings,
Plaza.
right?
But if you
And then, but Myron B. Thompson is not currently at the 629 Poho kind of building.
Oh,
But
okay.
if you build affordable housing, which you claim, everyone is always, I can't tell you over the years the amount of discussion I've heard of affordable housing that's going up somewhere.
Some's already been developed at 680 Alamoana, 54 units. It was the first product put in KS.
But if you do, if you're going to put in a significant number of them, I mean, you're going to have more schools, right? You're going to need elementary, you're going to need intermediate, maybe a high school, maybe not a high school. But are there plans for that or thoughts about that down the road? Or
Okay, so the school first. Some of our statistics and our the demographic studies would seem to say that the average family household in Kakaako, by census tract, is about 1.8. So actually, we don't see. I mean, that number doesn't
Right
tell
now.
you that there's a lot of kids there. Okay, the census information again and materials from our EIS would seem to show that there currently is capacity at some of the area public schools. Now, notwithstanding that, I think with some of the workforce housing that we're putting in, and there's an opportunity for upwards of 2,000, over 2,000 of those units. And so I'd expect that there would be kids. So we need to do something. So we're working specifically with DOE on an initiative that is before the governor for 21st century schools to demonstrate that concept. And so the 21st century school is a reinvention, and school would then be as a more connected 24 by 7 type of operation with community. So yes, I do expect that the development of school activities and programs will be a part of it. McKinley is there, and that's a logical site where further growth can be done. But that really is DOE policy, and we need to work closely with them as to how they see the schools coming out.
can the panel define what affordable is? I make $45,000 per year and will not be able to afford to live in Kakaako anymore after this redevelopment. Is that true?
I'm going to have to dispute that. Currently, a project that's we're putting up is Halikuila Place, 204 affordable rental units, meant and targeting family of four earning about $50,000 or less. Okay, so that's 60% of the area median income. Those units are studios, 1s, 2s, and 3s. Okay, so space to grow. 204 under construction now, should be topped off in August. And then we have other projects, or project sounds bad. We have other developments on 801 South Street. Again, 635 units that are priced to for families, again, studios 1s and 2s, up to $120,000 family income. Now, it's important to remember that we must all be a part of the solution. So you envision a housing ladder, and it might be luxury, market, right, workforce, affordable, low income, and very low income. Very low income is public housing. Low income would be something like 60% of area median income. Affordable might be to 100% of area median income, family of 4 making about $87,000. Okay, so again, if I've looked at the numbers, and actually at the end of this build out with all the pipeline projects, we might have 6,500 market units. And the expectation is that or the numbers will be that we have 4,500 affordable or moderate units. And I'm not even counting the houses at Sheridan Track. That's that area where Makiki Christian is. So we have a bunch of a blend, and it is really a mixed income community.
Do you like the blend?
I do.
And I'm not going to hold it against.
No, I do. I think they are doing a very sincere effort, a better effort than has been done in many places in the past.
Let's go back.
To do that.
Let's go back to what you were saying though about a livable space.
Yeah.
If I'm looking for art nowadays, or for the last 15, 20 years, I go to a place where there's low rent and there are a lot of galleries and so forth, I find myself in Chinatown, right? I can also find more partying down there now among young people, among millennials, than any place else on the island, I think, except Waikiki on a Saturday night where there are too many people. Yeah. But I mean, isn't part of this for art?
I see that shifting a lot. Downtown was that district, and I say was because everyone's coming to Kakaako since all the murals went up. All the the places like ours where we sell artwork, a lot of people are starting to migrate. I noticed a lot of tenants that I remember from Chinatown. They're in our neighborhood.
Oh, are
now.
they really?
So I'm like, hey, what are you guys doing here? It's like, oh, it's tough because it is a party scene.
Too much of a party. It's become too much of a party scene.
And even for us, when we went and we tried to help them with their First Friday event, but honestly, there's no place for kids, right? So after a certain time, the kids can only go into like 2 places on 2 blocks, that allows anyone under 21. So that space doesn't fit us, whereas Kakaako does. They can roam from morning till night and still feel safe in those neighborhoods because we've been working that ground level, and we work with the locals and we hear what they're saying. Yeah, and one of the big concerns for them is where's that cultural presence. Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing tonight is everyone talking about the future, but no one's really looking at that past and honoring that past. So my thing to the developers is like always look at what our kupunas and what our ancestors have put down first, and then honoring it, and how are we going to honor it, especially with that kind of the kind of income that a lot of local folks are making here. Doesn't really fit the picture, but at least they're listening, and that's an interesting thing that we don't normally get.
And it's a critical part of supporting the arts. For instance, we have 44 acres of park below Ala Moana Boulevard. And, while many people, see that, okay, green grass, that's great. I think there needs to be more real activities there. I mean, we've been able to create a venue out of our existing amphitheater where up to 8,000 young people will go and they will have rap and reggae or electronic dance music. Okay, but you know what? That's all right. That's an activity that we need to have so people can see that that's a place to hang. Now, when there's no concerts, I think on Thursday nights there's sort of an impromptu Christian fire knife type of hanging out at that same amphitheater. But you know what? So in that park, I think
I don't know them. I swear.
In that park, I think we have an opportunity to have community performing arts venue, and that's something that we're going to be trying to put together. That I can even see perhaps an art warehouse. And when I say art warehouse, and Christian and I will talk about this, it's your fault, Christian, for encouraging art on me. I think we really have to look at how can we enliven and give venues for on a stall basis even, for artists to work out, and that it can double as a community facility, because then art is community,
But Tony, you talk as though you can create the venue, right? It seems to me that a lot of it is still, and you're saying you can plan it. Seems to me a lot of it is still accident, and it's the people who live there, and it's the people who are, if they are staying there, if they are playing there as well as living there and getting educated there, and it's accidental in a lot of ways as well. If the rents go too high on the ground floor, artists like low rents, right? They don't make big money. Musicians, the same thing. I've talked too much. Am I out of my league? Am I stupid? Yeah.
Okay,
Tell me I'm stupid. Tell me I'm stupid.
No, you're not.
Go ahead.
I think when you look at what happens at the platform level and above, you're not going to get much that's going to be culturally sensitive and related to the past. But you can get that, as we're getting that now, through what Prime and others are doing like that, at the street level. So that's why I keep saying this, the street level is what's so important. And if we plan it, I'm getting beyond planning. We got to build it. If we build it properly, so that it has the spaces to do that and yet the flexibility to change how the spaces are used to fit what works, that will create this great urban place. If we don't focus on the ground level, we're not going to have a great urban place.
I keep on hearing critical support, a contradiction. But you know what? We are doing certain things that I think will start.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to seeing it, because I haven't seen it happen in Hawaii in all my time.
So we have plans,
this would be a first.
And an application for funding of 80-unit artist live-work facility. Okay, and that's on lands that we happen to have on behind Pacifica with frontage on Kauai and Waimano Street. Okay, so those are things that are happening. That amphitheater and finding out that is a venue where people can exhibit, demonstrate, create, emote, without fear of noise restrictions and the like and bothering people. That's already happening.
Or fire. John, can your model, someone wants to know, can your model for bringing art into a community like Kakaako work in other communities to help youth in need, or is it working in other communities?
It actually is. In fact, we're going beyond the Pacific Ocean, and we're starting to expand in Tampa and LA.
Somebody wants to know, what do they plan to do about rising sea levels due to global warming or in the event of a tsunami? This is a very low area, isn't it?
Okay, that's a really good question. Okay, so from a planner's point of view, and we can take New York as an example. Now, and Sendai, you cannot create a community that is, quote, disaster resistant. If you say, I'm going to top off and I'll build a 10-foot levee, the good Lord above is going to, he can be very humbling for us, and he'll send a 12-foot wave. So instead of being disaster resistant, we should be disaster resilient. We should plan and design our buildings such that we can respond and using best practices that we can anticipate and then and mitigate. Sea level rise is 1 foot over the next 40 years, and by the end of the century, projected to be 2.5 feet to 6.2. Okay, so for the next 40 years, I'll give you a clue. The building code says that you already have to raise your floor at the very minimum. Okay, so that's sea level rise. A tsunami inundation. Again, we cannot predict when that one will hit. We certainly know we have inundation zones. We can take certain things, we can do certain things in terms of best practice in the design of those buildings that, again, allow them to be resilient.
But you can't move a 650-foot building, right?
Right.
Are planners increasingly worried about this with what appears to be happening worldwide or along the East Coast? I think they're talking about this in New York. They're talking about this in changing the landscape and buildings in New Jersey, certainly, aren't they?
Yeah. Planners are, however, the power to not change, to keep those communities is still overwhelming. So the solutions are more like Tony says, create resilience. Yeah, not
resilient.
Resilience. Yeah. I know, for example, Hawaiian Electric is dealing with issues now of the water tables rising, and they have all these underground lines, and what's going to happen. So it is a real issue. It's much more complicated than just whether or not you get a tsunami.
But it doesn't. It applies whether or not you have a 10-foot tall building or 400-foot
right.
tall building or
Yeah,
600-foot
yeah.
tall building. It's an issue that we have to deal with. We're not going to run away from it. We can't wall ourselves off of it. And so again, good design, resiliency, that's how the human race, that's how this community is going to respond to extreme conditions or really creep, the sea level creep.
I've got about 600 square feet upside in Pearl City, you know, that you guys should develop for me, and you'll be up. No, global warming is not going to touch the place. The panel is so grandiose. The viewer on Round, you guys are grandiose. This viewer on Round Top says the panel. But let's get real. There are a lot of small businesses in Kakaako. What will happen to them? I have a feeling they will be ousted. I think it will be a disservice to the present owners if rents are raised. Are these present small owners part of your plan?
There is displacement that occurs during the process of redevelopment in an area in transition, and I think that you can look at it broadly as locations of a city and urbanity change over time, and those changes and migrations do occur, and so there is change happening in Kakaako. And so Kamehameha Schools has a strategy, and so that what happens is we're very fortunate is we have alternate land holdings in different locations. So we have land holdings in the Kapalama area. We also have near the Waikimilo area. We also have land holdings in Kahala. We have Royal Hawaiian Shopping Center. We have Windward Mall. And so what we try to do is look for alternate solutions if a small business is being displaced or relocated at this time. Because even in development, if it's a business that could come back in, sometimes the fact of the matter is that redevelopment takes 15 months, it takes 24 months, and so things have to be turned off and the lights have to go out for that to happen. And so Kamehameha Schools as a landowner, and I can only speak for us, looks to attempt to relocate a small business into another location. And if that doesn't work, then we try to provide services and assistance to find them an alternate location.
Don't worry about it, because actually the master plan permit that was issued by my agency to both Kamehameha Schools and Howard Hughes requires that there is a relocation strategy, and they have they're obliged to seek to accommodate either within properties that will be developed, other properties, and the like. And so it is a unique circumstance. The other thing to remember is that there are certain parts of Kakaako which aren't owned by Howard Hughes or Kamehameha, and they're small landowners. And actually, it's in an area bounded by Cook on one side and Pensacola or Pecoy on the other side, and Kapiolani and Queen Street. Now within that area and those types of holdings, our TOD plan does not change heights, does not do anything that, we don't anticipate that there would be that kind of big change in terms of the character of those neighborhoods.
Ralph, I thought you wanted to say something.
Yeah, underlying relocation strategy. It's exactly going to happen. What is going to happen in Kakaako is pretty much as the gentleman from Round Top says, over time. This is some area where I probably will disagree with Tony on just a part of Kakaako. There's the central Kakaako zone he referred to. I don't know that we can do much about what's happening at Ward and Kamehameha Schools. They're major landowners. They're going to be redeveloped. But we have this whole major area of very small properties. It's called the Central Kakaako Zone. The policy is to support continued operation of service businesses, including light industrial uses such as repair shops, small manufacturing, and distribution, as well as residential mixed use. Now, I would say cross out as well as residential mixed use. With all the development that can happen on Ward and Kamehameha Schools, that area should be locked in as a light industrial service area. I walked it before this last week. It's vibrant. You know, it's not pretty. It's getting prettier with the artwork, but it's not pretty. The streets are crazy, but at the same time, people aren't getting run over and cars are not crashing into each other.
Mainly because the roads are rather narrow, aren't they? And
right, well, and then there's a lot of cars parking on the road.
And you know, on that matter.
No, and those services are so important to people. I mean, I just hear from somebody who just take their car down there, and now they got to rent the car to go out and take their car out to
Wait a minute, Tony. I want to bring up another point that
they should lock in low height, low density, and transfer the density rights to these iconic buildings that the governor wants to build.
That's a perfect segue, because our current rules allow all three of those items. In fact, more. So one,
allow, but not.
but we don't force. We don't force.
You're
Okay.
still allowing the mixed use, this controversy with the tower next to the Imperial Plaza, right?
Somebody
is in this
let-
area.
talking about
let
just
that
basic
process work out.
basic services. One I can't find the comment now, but one caller said we need a food store in the Kakaako area. There's no food store. I mean, it's
Agreed.
and
we call it a desert right now, and we're working very diligently to find that opportunity with the appropriate entity to come in and do that. That would be great to be able to provide that in our Kakaako if we could.
And what about but when all this happens, will you folks find yourself trying to look for a place with better? I mean, you know, Kahala Mall doesn't seem like a place for the refuge, right? I mean, that's owned by you guys. That doesn't seem like a refuge.
That was our biggest concern when we first, agreed to come into the neighborhood. Is like, okay, that's good. We're going to be here for this amount of time, but what happens after? And it was up to us to decide. Either we do it or somebody else is going to do it. And so we decided to do it and let everything happen organically, which is what's happening right now.
So you knew the risks
We knew the risk coming in.
that the leases come to an end.
Yes, yeah. But
and redevelopment will take place.
but at the same time, we're experimenting. Yeah, so we're trying to create something that would validate our presence, and I think that's what we're going through right now, is that validation process, like why we belong here in Kakaako.
And just again to go back to what he said, as part of it, we do try to relocate within Kakaako. If that doesn't work, and there's not the appropriate space or type of use, then it's external to Kakaako, and then if that doesn't work, we provide assistance. So with Prime, we're trying to find opportunities to continue to cultivate and grow the community, and that does continue to happen as the master plan unfolds.
Ralph, give me a thought on this. Plans to build a third city. What about completing the plans and following through on all the promises made when the second city was built out in West Oahu? It seems to me that when we were talking about whether to build rapid transit rail or not, many times over the last few years here, there was always the discussion that the transit-oriented development was going to be taking place at these stops. Not in Kakaako. I don't remember Kakaako ever being mentioned. What I heard over and over again was that it was going to determine development all along that 20-mile corridor, whatever it is.
Well, the city is doing TOD plans for each station area.
But nothing on this scale.
No, well, see, I'm not sure when they talk about TOD and Kakaako, to me the existing plan is a TOD development. I mean, it's at that intensity, it's at that mixed use. I'm not sure. It's higher intensity than any of the TOD plans for any of the other stations and for most stations at mainland transit stops. So to talk about TOD-oriented, transit-oriented development in Kakaako, I'm not sure. It really makes a lot of sense.
It's a fact that, and you can draw a particular walk, not as the crow flies, but along sidewalks, that you can go 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes walk from the transit centers, and you find that you're almost at Ala Moana. You're in downtown, okay, or you're at the beach.
Right.
It doesn't need. It's perfect for that. Now, I actually want to introduce a new term. Instead of transit-oriented development, it's actually pedestrian-oriented development. Because if you look at it and the rules that we placed, the notion that we should have a fine-grained street network, instead of big, long blocks along Oahu, that you would chop it, and that would have the ability with more intersections, that kind of density, that you would, again, you would be discouraging people from driving, quite frankly, because you could walk or bike just as fast, if not fast, more efficiently. And because, again, a section of what we're trying to do, parking and transportation demand management. If you look at our plan, we don't just talk about, hey, let's make the tallest building that we possibly can. That actually is a very minor discussion, and it only talks about how it can benefit the community, and that's the only time you give height. The bulk of the plan talks about complete streets. It talks about how transit work. It talks parking and transportation demand management. It talks about urban design, that instead of just focusing on having only tall towers, that you would have townhouse types of mid-level types mixed in. And so you can have more efficiency without producing that wall situation.
Our roads aren't built for the traffic already, and they want to add all these new buildings, fix our roads and traffic first. I don't think Jen's asking a question, she's making a comment there. Revitalization of Kakaako. How are people not living in the area supposed to visit Kakaako when there are no plans for parking in the area? Thus far, the plans being presented assume that everyone will be either living in the area using mass transit or a bus or a bicycle to get into Kakaako. How realistic is this? Is that really something?
I mean, I just
We
want
have a parking plan.
Yeah, there's a parking plan, and also, you know, with Salted Our Kakaako, which is about 80,000 square feet of retail, community-oriented service retail for a lot of the units that are coming in our phase 1, which is approximately 1,100 units. It starts with the collection, which will be coming announced for sale shortly. You know, that development is parked, you know, excessively over code, and that's to allow people to come into this community because we do want participation from the local community outside that aren't just the residential dwellers that are coming into the community to participate, to co-author, to participate in art and other experiences and build that community. It's not for the dwellers, and a more vibrant, active community has a lot of people coming in that are.
So here's another concept,
that are using
park
cars.
once, it's in our plan. So the notion is visitors to the district would be parking in facilities or locations within the district, and then they would be encouraged simply by the circumstances to, again, walk or bike to their destination. It's played out in like Santa Monica. Santa Monica has a shopping district. You park at the fringe, you have plazas and a promenade, and then you're serviced from there. You park once, and then you go through the...
Anonymous wants to know who's going to foot the massive infrastructure bill, sewer and water, and I suppose roads too. I mean, the current infrastructure there, is it sufficient for the kind of building that's going to take place?
You know, over the last, since 1982, and the legislature has authorized over $100 million for new streets, roadway improvements. So Cook, South, Kamehameha, certain streets have already been, so certain streets have already been fixed to allow. Now, so I will say that the pipes running in the street are right size, and where the streets were improved, that they can stand at. We have a street network plan within our, just how we can be, again, more connected with the existing system of roadways that has been constructed over time.
What are the plans for OHA's land development in the future? OHA has quite a, Office of Hawaiian Affairs has quite a bit of land there in Makai area. Is this all taken into the plan as well, or is that still way up in the air?
In the Makai area, there's currently no residential development allowed, and so, and OHA's plans for the 25 acres of good waterfront land that they received, I think that's for OHA to develop, and that's their prerogative.
But my understanding is that they will do it in conformance with the Makai area plan. Is that correct?
Yes, that's my understanding.
We're still back to the financial problem. I keep hearing affordable housing, but for many of the buildings in this affordable housing community, one needs to earn at least $100,000 a year. But isn't it? I read. Isn't it $68,000 to $130,000 for the moderate?
I have some numbers.
You have the numbers.
So currently, 490 senior rental units, and that's for people making less than $50,000 a year. 495 affordable rentals. That means that people making less than $87,000 a year, or up to $87,000 a year. 497 what we call workforce or reserve housing, moderately priced, and that's for those in 87 to 120. Now, the new projects that we're looking to build, 360 affordable rental units, and some of it is that 204 that's coming up, and that's for people making up to $87,000 a year. And that's families of four that I'm quoting for. Again, 804 workforce rental units, and that's from between 87 and 120. Other workforce, about 1,210 workforce units for sale. And again, that means from 87 to 120. Now, the important thing to remember, go back to that ladder of housing. Where did these people live before who are purchasing at 801 South Street? They lived in their parents' place. They lived in in a different type of rental situation. They're going up for a for sale gap group. That means they leave space on that housing ladder for others then to take place. We all have to be a part of the solution, not expecting that HCDA or Howard Hughes or Kamehameha are going to fire one silver bullet and all our problems go away. We all try to elevate people on that housing ladder, and we do our best we can.
Do you remember a futurist named Dater, Jim Dater?
Yes.
At the university? I think we all remember Jim Dater.
I took classes from him.
Dater's worried that they're going to end up being empty, towering monuments to our irresponsibility toward future generations. I believe in an essay he wrote that we're playing, by building all of this, these huge high-rises, we're playing Russian roulette in an economic, energy, and environmental casino, which we can't predict. Where are the people? You're saying we all got to do. Where are the people going to be who are going to live in this, in all of these things?
Everyone that opens up that's selling out. You know, I don't know what he's talking about.
There's tremendous demand for a multitude of
there's
products.
pent-up demand. And let's look at it this way. When government wants to build housing like Haleakala Place, we have to assemble all the money beforehand. It doesn't get built unless you have all the money. So we build it. Now, our market housing project needs to have a certain level of pre-sales in order to go and be real. So if you see it coming up, they're going to finish building it.
Yeah, but Tony, just really quick.
We're down to 1 minute.
I just want to say there's demand. People want to live in the urban core. It's the place to be. You can walk to work. It's a healthier lifestyle. There's more people to collect with, more community to participate in. It's a better experience, and I think there's going to be demand for it long term.
If this becomes a great urban place, people will come.
That's right.
They will come.
That's right.
These are all planners. I'm going to ask you, as Mr. Everyman here, John, are you optimistic about Kakaako's future?
Honestly, I am. Yeah. I mean, we all share the same concerns as other residents, but we are the people. And like, Tony was saying, we got to make it happen. We got to look for the solution and work towards that solution instead of keep identifying the problem.
I like his point of view. The planners, you never know. Thank you very, very much for being with us. It's been very enlightening and very informative. Next week, Insights poses the question, is Hawaii losing its middle class? Is the price of paradise too high for Hawaii's middle-income residents when confronted by higher food and housing costs, a challenged public school system, and few professional opportunities in a tourist-driven economy? That's next time on Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Dan Boylan. Ahui ho.